The book of Mark is a drama told in 3 acts. The first act is set in Galilee, and then Act 3 is down south in Jerusalem. Act 2 is Jesus and his disciples on the way in between the two, going south from Galilee to Jerusalem. Now we're going to take a look just at Act 1 here, chapters 1 through 8, titled, Who is Jesus? Focusing on Jesus' Galilean ministry, which can be divided into 3 sections geographically. 1:16 to 3:12 is going to be set in Galilee. This is Jesus' headquarters in Capernaum. But then in 3:13, Jesus is going to be jumping all around the Sea of Galilee, crossing it left and right. And then starting in 6:7, Jesus and his disciples are going to push beyond Galilee, first up northwest into the region of Tyre and Sidon, and then southeast into the area of the Decapolis, kind of beginning to head south. Well, it's kind of curious. Each of these 3 sections are going to begin here at the beginning of each with some kind of reference to Jesus' disciples, and then they will end with a summary statement of sorts. Take a look at this chart. So here we have Jesus' Galilean ministry, 1:16 to 8:21. And each of these begin with a reference, like I said, to the disciples. The first call of the disciples, Peter and Andrew, and then James and John is here in 1:16 to 20. And then in the beginning of the second section, we call the rest of the disciples, the 12, the apostles. And then in 6:7, those 12 are sent out on their little missionary journey there. And then each of these sections is going to end with a summary statement. We even have the prologue concluding with a summary statement in 1:14 to 15, which launches us into the Galilean ministry. And we have a couple of other summary statements here. Jesus went among all the villages teaching, very summary-esque. But then the last few verses of this section kind of kick us off into the next section, which focuses on the disciples' misunderstanding. Well, these chapters, they are fast-paced and they are action-packed, loaded with miracles of Jesus, miracles and authoritative teaching. And these miracles, they just come one after another, immediately, which is, of course, Mark's favorite word. Take a look at his use, or you might say overuse, of this word, immediately. So it's here in the prologue. Immediately he saw the heavens being torn open and the Spirit descending. And then immediately that same Spirit drove him into the wilderness where he will be tested for 40 days. Immediately the first disciples left their father and went to follow Jesus. And immediately there was a man with an unclean spirit who Jesus cast out. And immediately Jesus' fame spread everywhere. And then immediately Jesus healed Simon's mother. It's just all over the place. And these miracles here in chapters 1 through 8 are asserting Jesus' authority as the Son of God who came in power. But you remember, the purpose of the book of Mark is to challenge both Jewish and Roman conceptions of this idea of the Son of God. Who is Jesus really, and what does it mean for him to be the Son of God? And so Mark, here in these chapters, is going to present Israel's early reaction to Jesus, this miracle worker from Nazareth, and they are amazed. This is another motif in the book of Mark, presenting the amazement of the crowds. He uses 5 different words for being amazed. They could be astonished, amazed, they marveled, they were, let's see here, utterly astounded. There's a pretty good word, isn't there? They were astounded beyond measure. They were exceedingly astonished. It's pretty great. And what were they amazed at? Well, a couple of things, his teaching and his miracles. They were astonished at his teaching. His disciples were amazed at his words. They were astounded, and they asked, where did he get this wisdom in his teaching in the synagogue, a new teaching with authority. And then, of course, these references in blue are to instances where he calmed the sea, he walked on water, he raised a girl to life, and they were overcome with amazement. But key distinction here, it is easy to be amazed at a wonder worker, but it is hard to follow him to the cross. And so Mark is going to capture Israel's response not as wholehearted embrace of their Messiah, but as questioning, doubt, and confusion, and even in some cases, hostile confrontation of this miracle worker from Nazareth. Take a look at these, the chapters, or the questions that these chapters are just filled with. Who is this Jesus? Everyone is asking, and no one quite understands. So both the crowd and Jesus' disciples are going to ask nearly the same question. They say, who is this man that even the unclean spirits obey him, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Clearly, he has authority. But then look at the scribes and the Pharisees and what they ask. They're going to question Jesus. What is this man? How does he speak like that? How can he say this? Why does he do this? Why does he do that? Why do your disciples not do this? They are questioning Jesus, who is constantly challenging these Pharisees' cherished man-made and works-based religious traditions. So Jesus is healing people on the Sabbath, and he's permitting his disciples to, pluck grain from the Sabbath and eat it, which, according to the Pharisees, is not lawful to do on that day. And then he's going to reject the religious tradition, which is upheld by these Pharisees, when his disciples eat with defiled hands. And he's going to say instead, what truly defiles someone is what's on the inside, their heart, their motives, the sin that lies within, instead of the outside, on the outside of the hand. That doesn't defile someone, Jesus says. And then, of course, look at this string of questions here in Jesus' hometown of Nazareth and the synagogue where he taught there. And these Nazarites are going to say, where did this man get these things? What is this wisdom? How are such mighty deeds being done by his hand? We all know who this guy is. He's the carpenter, the son of Mary. We know his brothers. We know his sisters. He can't be that special. And of course, the Pharisees are going to question him constantly as well. For according to them, Jesus, he can't be the Son of God. He does not fit our mold of the perfect law keeper, right? He does what is not lawful. Therefore, he can't be the perfect law keeper and Messiah, who is, a God in their own image, these Pharisees. Well, he also, Jesus, does not fit the messianic mold of popular conception. And so Jesus is going to do something rather surprising in these chapters 1 through 8 specifically. He is going to issue a gag order. He's going to command everyone who witnesses his miracles to be silent, to not share, to not go around telling everyone that this guy named Jesus is performing miracles. Take a look at this. This is a phenomenon that in scholarship we call the messianic secret. It occurs in all the Gospels, but it is most prominent and most frequent in the Gospel of Mark. Where let's look at a couple of examples of this here. So in 5:43, Jesus is going to bring a girl back to life. Everyone's going to be amazed, but Jesus will strictly charge them that no one should know this. And then again, when Jesus heals a man who is dumb and mute, he speaks again, he hears again. Everyone's astonished beyond measure, but Jesus charges them to tell no one. Again, 8:26. And this time he heals a blind man, and he tells this blind man, don't even enter the village. Don't go where all the crowds are, and they will see that you have been healed. And then in every single instance where Jesus confronts the powers of darkness and he challenges the Satan's influence in this world, casting out demons, he's going to command the demons, rebuking them, saying, "Be silent." He will not permit the demons to speak. He strictly orders the unclean spirits not to make him known. Why? It says explicitly, because they knew him. They said openly, these demons, "I know who you are. You're the Holy One of God." They said in chapter 1. And then again, "You are the Son of God." And tell me, is that an important title in the book of Mark? Of course it is. Why then? I mean, it's the very thesis of the book. Jesus is the Son of God, spoken so by the Father at his baptism. The demons proclaim the same. Why would Jesus silence this message? He does so because Israel does not know what it means for him to be the Son of God. You see, they're expecting a warrior king to come and defeat the Romans and liberate them from that bondage. And they could never understand Jesus' mission to hard-hearted Israel, to bring Israel to repentance and back to the Father. You see, if Jesus acknowledged his true identity as Messiah and Son of God, well, then the crowds would rush to make him a king on their own terms. Therefore, Jesus is going to squash this messianic expectation wherever it flares up, in order to define what it means for him to be the Son of God on his own terms. Because for Mark, you cannot truly know Jesus, the Son of God, apart from his mission to die as a ransom and an atoning sacrifice for his people. Now, Jesus is going to attempt to explain this to his disciples in chapters 8 to 10, which we will take a look at next.